if your day sounds like...
We need the report ASAP.
You deserve Modelo. If you've persevered through... You deserve this rich golden lager with a crisp but refreshing taste. Or if you overcame...
2 more reps, 2 more.
You deserve this ice-cold reward. Modelo, the mark of a fighter. Drink responsibly. Beer imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Welcome back to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where 2 best friends recap romance novels while swooning and loving when a character's ensemble includes a frown.
Gonna love what we love, do it out loud. Stack our shelves with the clinches out. Shout it from the rooftop, can you hear the sound? Yeah. Live your best life, love it out loud. Love it out loud.
Hey HBs, we love that you're back. This is part 2 of Triple Sec by TJ Alexander. If you haven't heard part 1, press pause on this and listen to the episode that came out yesterday first. Okay, when we left off, BB and Mel had just confessed their love after their first fight. And then BB invited Mel on a skiing trip that will include her wife, Cade. I think you might have a guess on how Sabrina feels about that. Here we go. Oh my God, though. I felt so seen in this conversation because BB goes, so do you happen to like skiing? And Mel just busts up and she's like, when do you think I had the opportunity to go skiing? That's bananas. I can't even afford the fucking pants you wear. Like, what? That is rich people shit, dude.
So basically, Mel agrees. Also, Mel is freaked out a little bit, or not freaked out, but is like, what the hell do I do? Because it's actually a skiing trip with BB and Cade. And so she's like, oh my God, like, what are the sleeping arrangements? What is this? What is that? And then BB can't make it because of work. And so Cade and Mel end up going.
Well, and BB's like,
their own.
I'll be there tomorrow. Just go ahead without me.
And she legitimately...
She thinks that's true.
But the most beautiful thing is they're in the airport, Cade and Mel. And people are constantly misgendering Cade, which that is so fucking common because the airport is so strict about, you know, passports, which has to have your legal gender on it and your legal name and all of these things. And so all over the place, Cade's getting misgendered.
Yeah.
And Mel is noticing it and tries to like pointedly refer to Cade as they, them and things like that. And just nobody's picking up on it. And then I felt so bad for this bartender. But also like I understand where this was coming from.
Well, also this was like the 8th person they had gotten to, and so Mel could see that finally it was really getting to them.
So what happens is they sit down at this bar in the fancy lounge, and the person looks at Cade and says, "And for you, sir?" "I'm not a sir," Cade said. Their voice was tight, like they were trying to hold themselves in check. "I'm sorry." Rita passed their eyes over Cade, taking in their Ferragamo outfit. "Pardon me, ma'am?" "I'm not a ma'am." Mel could see Cade's nostrils flare. And then this bartender.
Oh my God. Says the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
"Oh, not me. I've heard this."
What?
Like,
what does that even?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah. This bartender says, I thought only women were non-binary." And Mel loses it. I loved Mel in this moment.
Yeah.
She basically like pulls herself over that bar and she's like, the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
You can't say that to a guest. You work in hospitality. Where's the hospitality? And Kate tries to like pull Mel back. And she's like, no. And I felt bad for the bartender because she was very right in the sense that like, but I'm so sorry. I have to greet guests. Like I can get in trouble if I don't greet a guest by sir or ma'am. And Mel says, it's a shitty rule. Fucking ignore it. Otherwise, you're rolling the dice every time, hoping someone like Cade won't show up in this joint. How do you think that makes them feel? Not welcome. I'll tell you that much.
But what I liked about this scene is that it really shows how this kind of oppression is systemic. Like,
oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter what the bartender wants to do. If they want to keep their job, they think they have to do this thing because they have been told explicitly that they have to do this thing. And the institution itself hasn't given them a third option. There is no gender neutral option written into the script. And so on the one hand, yes, I would love to tell people ignore the fucking rule. But on the other hand, I don't know that they can afford to lose their job.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
exactly.
What, how?
Like, I feel bad for this bartender.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not their fault. Their job is shitty and binary.
Yeah.
So, and this whole time, like, oh, precious Cade is like trying to hold Mel back. Like, Mel, it's fine. And Mel's like, no, it's not. It is the opposite of fine. And this was just really beautiful because Mel can get pissed about something like this, right?
If
because
Cade does,
Mel is not
that
the
would be their entire life.
Yep, exactly. Like, and this is, oh my God, reading this scene, I just had yet another moment of some days I'm just so grateful that even though I'm genderqueer, I don't give a shit about she, her pronouns.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I generally prefer, like, I 9 times out of 10 prefer they, them, but like, I don't care about she, her.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me to be called she, her. Frankly, it wouldn't bother me to be called he, him.
Yeah.
But nobody's going to call me that because of the way that I physically present.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, like, I feel so fucking bad.
Yes.
Everybody I know who gets constantly misgendered because of that. And I feel for them. And this was so beautiful.
It's a death by 1,000 cuts situation.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. So they end up
getting the most elaborate waters that a bar has ever served. Poor Rita. Rita is like, I would love to get you some top shelf booze that's never free, but I'll make it free. And they're like, no, we're going to go with water. And then Rita's like, can I add a pineapple? I would love a sprig of rosemary.
Would you like that infused?
Yes. Poor thing.
Oh, God. And then they go sit down and Cade looks at her and says, today has been stressful. Normally, I can ignore the constant inaccuracies from strangers. I would never leave the house otherwise.
Yeah.
But on days like this, it's difficult. I would never do what you did. And Mel takes that as you fucked up.
You crossed the line.
Instead of Kate being, because like I get this. There's lots of things that I could never do for myself, but I appreciate it when somebody else does it for me. And that's how Kate meant it. It was like,
but with their affect, there's no way for Mel to know that, especially because at this point, she thinks she's just like she's constantly fucking up in front of Cade. And so she's just like, I'm just a flailing mess in front of this person. And like, so she looks at Cade and she says, noted. And then like goes back to her phone. And then Cade goes, okay, fine. And like gets their book out.
Then they pull out Frankenstein.
They pulled out Frankenstein.
A physical copy.
Cade, how dare you? So they end up getting all the way to the house, right? And it's like, it's a train, it's a plane, it's a crazy drive.
They land and then it's a multi-hour car ride to
Calgary to Banff.
Going?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But like, there's no other airports?
I also felt very seen by this because they pull up and Mel goes, where's the cabin? Is it behind that big mansion? And then Kate's like, that is the cabin. And she's like, what? That's ridiculous.
Oh my God. But then Mel makes the comment
Yes.
of like, I definitely wasn't expecting a mansion in a place like this. You and I could rattle around all weekend and not cross paths even once. And then Cade
Oh my God.
looks at her distressed and says, or specifically says, the corners of their mouth pulled downward into a frown. If that's what you'd prefer, they said as they brush by.
Oh my God.
Cade, baby, come to my bosom.
I know.
I'm so sorry.
And so Mel is like, God damn it. And she tries to be like, I think we could get to know each other or whatever. But Kate's already in the house and they can't hear her. So
Yeah.
they end up going into the house and then they get a call from BB. And she's like, oh my God, are you okay? Are you still in Calgary? There's a storm. And like the call is breaking up and it's terrible. Essentially, there's a blizzard of the century coming in. And since they're already there, they're gonna be snowed in. It's
Snowed in trope. Well, and specifically because this was so funny, Mel's like, I gotta go talk to BB alone. Cade, BRB.
See you soon.
And she like disappears and she's like, it's breaking up over this call. And she's like, BB, are you sure this is gonna be okay? Because like Cade hates me. And BB's like,
What?
Cade?
No.
Pretty sure Cade doesn't hate you. And she's like, yeah, it is.
It's like that.
They do hate me. And they're like, that's simply not true. And then she starts to say, I promise you they don't. The picture froze with BB's eyes in a half blank. In fact, Mel shook her phone like it was an Etch-a-Sketch. I felt very seen by that. BB, I'm losing you. Told them I wouldn't say anything to you, but they cut out again. Mel's eyes went wide. Say what to me, BB? The call dropped. And in my head, I'm screaming, Cade likes you, boo. Cade likes you, Mel.
likes you.
Cade's into you. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. Do you think we're going to starve? And Cade is like, no, we're not going to. And then the power goes out.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, shit. So
These
they
two
start
hot
looking
dummies.
around for things. And she's like, you got to start a fire. And Kate's like, how?
I don't know how to
what?
do that.
Why? And Mel's like, I also don't know how to
Why
do
would
that.
I know how to start a fire? I've never been to a cabin like this. And
And
Kate's
Kate
like,
says, I'm not an outdoorsy type. BB's always been the one to light the fire.
and then Mel
and Mel
thinks to
says-
herself, Mel thinks to herself, what kind of tops are we?
Completely useless, the pair of them.
Anyway, so they have to go get some wood, and it's Scary Town. Yeah.
One beautiful thing, because this was really lovely representation.
Yeah, sure.
So in this book, Cade is referred to as BB's wife, right? And so
Yeah.
that is not a gender neutral spouse or anything like that.
Oh, I thought that
And,
happened
like,
after the
No.
wood situation.
And so Mel asks Cade, why does BB call you their wife instead of like something gender neutral? And Cade says, I like the word wife. It appeals to me in a way the other words for spouse never could. BB and I have imbued it with a kind of magic, I think. Words are just symbols, and a symbol can mean whatever you ascribe to it. I don't think you need to be a woman to be a wife. Even men could be wives if they tried hard enough. Most of them don't, but there's always hope. And it was just really beautiful. But yeah, then, boy, they gotta go get that firewood.
Yeah, and so at first, Cade loses the flip. And so they're going to go out and get the firewood. And Mel is like, I am the obvious choice. As the butchest person in this cabin, I am the obvious choice. I am so much more familiar with blue-collar shit, Mel says.
I can lift heavy things.
That's basically my whole job description. Anyway.
And then Cade looks at her and says, if I don't come back, you'll have the house to yourself? And Mel's like, don't even fucking say that.
Don't joke about that
Don't
shit.
put that out in the universe. And like, Cade, because like, Cade was like kind of joking, but Cade's like, sorry, bad time to attempt humor.
Yeah.
And Mel's like, yeah.
And then Mel is like, I can't let them go without giving them some sort of like gesture of gratitude or something. And so she goes, I'm going to hug you now, if that's okay. And Cade's like, yes, that if you would like to. And so Mel hugs them. And then they go out into the wintry, So it takes too long. And Mel gets way too worried, and so she jets out there. They end up carrying a bunch of wood back together. They fall into the house, and then they've got to, God damn it, these two idiots. They don't know what a flue is. They don't know how to do anything. It's so cute.
So
they fill the house
almost
with
tagged this.
smoke, and then their fire burns out
almost-
completely because there's too much air.
I almost tagged this book as trope survival, and then I realized that's
No.
not what is happening here. They would die.
Not even close.
I took that trope off because I was like, never mind.
These dumbasses.
Oh my god.
It's so great.
But they Cade is
wet. God, they're so wet.
and Mel says, you need new clothes, and Cade takes off their clothes, right?
Yeah.
They take off their shirt.
Yes.
And Mel is about to ask about their tattoos because they
Turns
notice
out-
this beautiful tattoo.
She's never seen that they have a gorgeous back piece, like a full back piece.
And I felt very seen by Mel in this moment because she is literally struck dumb
Yes.
by this sight and is like Cade turns around and is like, what were you about to say? And Mel's like, cool tattoo.
Looks artsy. Artsy one, tattoos. So she's like, can I see it? And Cade's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And goes over by the fire. Oh, they say, I've got to dry off anyway. So, yeah, you can look at my back tattoo.
Yeah. So they get the fire going. And they have like just mutual sexy tattoo admiration times because at one point Cade is like, I haven't gotten to admire, like, look at your tattoos.
Yeah.
either."
Not up
and
close anyway.
She just whips off her shirt and she's standing there in a sports bra and they come up and they're like, oh my
They're,
God,
like,
the tension was
very-
real high.
Yes, the tension was excellent.
So Mel mixes them some drinks
Mm-hmm.
and they snuggle up on the couch and get like cozy up, and Cade has been drawing
Yeah.
in their notebook.
Casually. Super
Mhm.
casual.
And Mel says, oh, can I see what you're working on? And Cade is like, no, yeah, okay.
Okay.
And hands it to her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a drawing of Mel. And
Mixing
it's
the drink.
beautiful.
And she's like, oh my God, this is how they see me. I'm beautiful and I'm strong. And tell them.
And she says, I knew you were talented, but I mean, wow, look at how good you made me look. And Cade
my
says,
God.
as if you don't know.
Yeah.
And Mel says, what? And Cade goes,
Huh?
what?
What?
So they end up opening up to each other about past heartbreak, basically.
Yeah.
And she tells them about Lynn, their ex-wife, and all of these things. And they open up to her about Blue, this other, like this beautiful genderqueer,
Artist.
yeah, that they were in love with. And then
Like they
what
immediately
happened-
clicked together. Cade felt like, you know, they've loved a lot of people and BB loves them, but they've never been so immediately seen in the way that Blue and they could connect.
Yeah, because BB loves Cade and basically accepts their idiosyncrasies and who they are, but
This person spoke their
Blue-
language.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we, like, because they keep kind of going back and forth talking about, like, I mean, like you do when
Right.
you're talking about these past relationship stuff. And we learned Cade's thoughts on marriage, and it was so beautiful. 'Cause
Gorgeous.
Mel is basically like, what made me think we'd be together forever? Because that's what marriage is, and all of these things. And Cade says, I think it's strange to define a good marriage as one in which two people stay together until they, what? Both die simultaneously? It's a lot of pressure, not to mention statistically unlikely. Cade. Forever is a lofty goal. My only goal is happiness, and I don't pretend to know what that will look like in the future. And it's just lovely.
Today, we'll be exploring the sounds of comfort. Listen closely. That's the sound of you getting a complimentary hand massage at the nail salon. And that's the sound of your favorite bedroom fan, still spinning after 5 years. Now listen to the sound of a cold, creamy Starbucks mocha frappuccino drink. With deliciously satisfying flavors, Starbucks frappuccino drinks are comfort in a bottle.
After the end of a good fight, you deserve an ice-cold reward. Modelo, you put in the hours, the energy, the tough labor, because you know the bigger the fight, the better the reward. Modelo, the mark of a fighter. Drink responsibly. Beer imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
And then I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you have never identified as a lesbian, so you may not have an answer for me.
Okay. Sure.
Mel talks about this apparent stereotype that lesbians all have perfect relationships.
This was wild to me. What?
I've never, ever heard of that stereotype, and I don't even know where it would necessarily come from.
No.
Because I've never met a pair of lesbians, and like this is a gross exaggeration and very much like an across-the-board statement that is not true for a lot of people, right? But I'm just thinking about my youth, like from 17 to 22 when I identified as a lesbian, right?
Yeah.
And I've never met a pair of lesbians in a relationship who weren't a hot fucking mess and everybody knew about it.
I mean, and like even if they're not hot messes in that way,
yeah,
I've never met a pair of lesbians that aren't just like incredibly honest.
You and I have had very different.
No,
lesbian
like
interactions
in the way that I know a lot of straight couples who you find out there's bullshit happening in the background that you would never know.
Well, that's exactly this. This felt like, and yeah, so like hot mess that wasn't the right term. But
okay.
Because I was joking. But like,
well, also you were 17 to 22. Like,
well, but like even now, I know a lot more heterosexual couples because it's not just lesbians, just like in general the queer community, right? Like queer relationships. I've never seen one and gone, oh my God, that's a perfect relationship.
Yeah.
Like they're very open about the fact, oh yeah, we've had issues or like all of these that kind of stuff. Like the people I've known anyway have just generally been very open about that. Whereas like, my God, the number of heterosexual relationships that I've had no idea.
No, shit's in the shadows. Shit is.
And And that's not to say that you need to tell everybody, right, about what's going on in your relationship. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But it just boggled my mind that Mel was like, the stereotype that lesbians are.
No, you know, what I took from that is like the stereotype. It's the same stereotype as like women are so much more emotionally in tune. And so it's easier to talk to a woman about blurdle schmur and like, you know, you can get stuff out on the table. And that's not necessarily true in a relationship.
Period. Yeah, it doesn't matter gender or what kind of relationship it is, or like sexual orientation or romantic orientation. It doesn't matter. The thing that because my initial reaction was, what lesbians? But like my second reaction was, okay, you know, I can understand it from a certain perspective though, because, and I do remember this so vividly, especially at that particular age in my life, right? And I was in a lesbian relationship. Like, even after I realized I wasn't a lesbian, I was in a lesbian relationship for the next, you know, several years.
Couple of years,
so essentially, there was this idea, this push, and it was very strong in high school, especially in like the mid-noughts, right? Where it was the man and the woman in the lesbian relationship, right? Where it was like somebody is playing that masculine man role and somebody like this, and like it was mind-boggling to a lot of people that two butch people could be together, or two femme people could be together, or like there's an androgynous person in here. And like this idea that even though you're gay, to be accepted, and boy, that's still true now. Yes. In order to be in a queer relationship, you still have to fit that nuclear stereotype.
That heteronormative stereotype.
There's that man breadwinner who's going to come back to their little, you know, barefoot baby lady.
There needs to be that short-haired one that swings the hammer. And then that long-haired one that cleans shit.
Exactly. Like this push to be the nuclear family in order to be accepted by heteronormative society. Yeah. And so like that was my second thought. And I was like, oh, you know what? I do remember it being a thing where like if you're having problems, like all of the queer community, like everyone's going to know. It's a fucking gossip fest like any other small community, right? The straight people aren't going to know that.
No.
As far as they're concerned, we have a perfect relationship.
Absolutely.
I'm going to leave my men are so hard. I'm going to leave my husband and go be a lesbian now.
Oh my
It's
God,
like,
shut
they don't
your
have
face.
problems. And it's like,
What are you
they
talking
do. You're
about?
just not hearing about them because guess what? You're heterosexual in a heteronormative world.
Right.
And so we're not going to show you our cracks.
I mean, absolutely.
Because you're going to exploit them. Well, oh my God, look, all of those lesbians are just so angry and have such bad relationships. Why don't they just...
Do they not like being
be straight?
penetrated? Is that what it is, do you think? If they don't mind penetration, why aren't they just with men?
Lord, anyway.
So then as they're talking...
One extremely important thing.
Yeah.
Just, again, representation in a book matters. And this is a couple times in a row now, practically, where this has happened. Kate explicitly says out loud that they they're non-binary, but like they specifically, and yes, non-binary falls under the genderqueer and the trans umbrellas.
Yeah.
But they state on page that they're genderqueer, and it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I'm the luckiest duck. We've got Dahlia, who identifies as queer. We have Cade that identifies as genderqueer, and anyway.
Well, and I'm so glad that this author included clarifying conversations like, why does BB call you her wife?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because in that genderqueer space, it doesn't mean that all gendered terms are off the table. You just have to pay attention to what each person wants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. 10,000%.
So as they're going through all of this, they're getting closer. And Cade finally says, I think I have to tell you something. And Mel's like, okay. And Cade says, I like you. And Mel's like, internally, she's like, I'm so glad I didn't spit out my drink. And she's like, what? And then Cade's like, BB calls it a crush, but that is very juvenile and I'm not having it. But yeah, I can't explain it. I just feel like magnetized toward you and I'm so attracted to your kindness. It bowls me over.
Devastatingly attractive.
I mean...
But you have this sense of justice that makes me weak.
Yes.
And when BB told me what you did for the bartender at my show and when you defended me at the airport bar, I am stunned every time I look at you in every sense. Mel swallowed. And here I thought I'd blown it with that stun at the airport. You seemed so upset with me. I was upset about the situation.
Yeah.
When I said I'd never have done what you did. I meant I was thankful. And then Mel, everything she knew about Cade so far pointed to the simple fact that they weren't as cold or stony as they first appeared, that their aloofness was only what people saw on the surface. Cade wasn't an emotional robot. They actually felt very deeply. What they described with Blue was not the mark of someone who couldn't feel love and loss and pain. They were a big, beautiful, romantic.
Yes.
And then she takes too long to say anything, and Kate's like, oh, but like, this doesn't need to change anything between us. Like, I just wanted to be honest with you because we've been like, we're closer in the last 24 hours than I thought we'd ever be in a lifetime. I don't expect anything from you in return because Kate is a beautiful, perfect, special angel.
Yes.
And Mel says, I like you too.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of thought you hated me, and I kept kicking myself about getting it wrong when it came to you, but you're something else, Cade. Something I'm really fond of. And Kate says, that's the perfect word. I have an unending
fondness for you. Oh my God.
And oh my God. And then she says, and you think I'm hot? And Kate's like, yeah, despite my best efforts not to.
There are so many times, and like I loved this section and like sort of this little idiosyncrasy in their dynamic, because one, like, Mel, how could they be with BB if they were cold and stony and aloof? you know? Like,
Yeah,
how
right.
it's like when people tell me that when they hang out one-on-one with Michael, or like they get to know him better, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know he was so this or that or funny or, you know, whatever. And I'm like, well, how do you think we work if he doesn't have more levels than the one you see on the surface? Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, and then the other thing is that, man, Cade says so many things that, like, Michael says about me. And one of the things is, like Mel will say something ridiculous, right? And like, there is a Mel in this sound booth that also says many ridiculous things.
There were so many times where I was like, oh shit, this is a Mel. This is a Mel squared situation.
Yeah. Anyway, and so Mel will say something, and Cade will be like, why am I so completely and utterly attracted to you? Why? Why?
I would also like to say Mel is 1,000% correct. This Mel, book Mel, is 1,000% correct. Percenters when she says see, now I get it. This is you being funny. You're funny. In addition to being aggravatingly sexy and talented, fucking pick one. Leave some for the rest of us.
Yeah.
And then listener, I'm so sorry, Mel. I'm taking this because Cade is the love of my
Please.
life. They kiss, okay? And it is so beautiful because they lean over and take the drink from Mel and set it on the table. And then they're so serious as they come into her. And then they meet in the middle. And it turns out that Cade's a little primal. Like,
Wildcat.
Teeth and clawing fingers, Cade's hands holding her head, and
oh my God.
Maybe there is something to BB's pet theory because she was right about Cade. They were a totally different animal like this.
Yes.
Needful and frantic and rough and loud. Really loud.
Cade.
And like, they're desperate for her and like grabbing, and then they pull themselves away from this kiss, okay? And they're like, we don't have to. They begin to say, do you want to though? Those dark eyes flashed in the firelight. Yes, I do. And listener, it is on TM. We find out that Cade is a pleasure dom.
They just want to do whatever you want to do. Is what they want to do. They say, what can I do for you?
They're like nibbling. I'm so red right now. They're like nibbling on her neck. And they're like, what can I do for you? Tell me. And she's like, you're very different than how you usually are. You're more aggressive. And they say, I am more active than not. They said with strange delicacy, but only because by the way, it's strange delicacy because they are grinding their hardness all up on Mel. And they say, but only because I like doing for others. There's nothing more erotic to me than bringing pleasure.
And that is why they work with BB.
And Mel says, are we secretly a service top? St. Cloud? And they say, it's not much of a secret.
And this is when Mel says that she likes to be a little mean during sex. And then she says, what's the meanest thing you can do to a pleasure dom? And Cade says, not let them do anything. And she's like, yeah, so you're gonna watch me masturbate, and you cannot touch me, and you cannot touch yourself. And Cade's like, what? Why though?
Oh my God. But then they say,
this was putting on a show for Cade, who was watching her from across the scant distance like she was dinner. You're so fucking hot, they murmured. Their eyes were glassy, losing that intelligent sheen in favor of something single-minded. They stretched one long, naked arm along the ground and pillowed their head on it, staring at Mel intensely.
I don't think I've ever been this flustered about a sex scene on pod since we've had some really intense kink. This is not even crazy sex. Listen, I am so red right now.
Yeah.
I jump back.
Oh my God.
Cade is so hot. And Cade and Mel are so hot.
Mm-hmm. Cade seemed hypnotized by the fluid on her finger and took longer than usual to form a snappish reply. I can't even touch myself? What am I supposed to do then? Absolutely nothing. Mel thrust her hand back between her thighs and gave her clit a luscious sweep of her thumb. Though, if you behave, maybe I'll let you put on a show for me. You're cruel. Cade's eyes were like molten fire. I like that about you. They sat up very deliberately and laced their hands together, then brought them to rest behind their head. It was the kind of pose that made Mel think of handcuffs. Ooh, maybe she could invest in some props. And then Cade says, "Is this sufficient?" And she says, "Perfect."
And then Cade asks if they're allowed to talk, and Mel says yes, and they say, "BB told me you were glorious."
Yes.
Their voice was a dark rumble in the shadowy room, so unlike their usual flat affect. But this, I wasn't prepared, not even a little. You're a force of nature, aren't you? And she says, "Bet you say that to all the girls." And they say, wait, Cade's arms flecked like they wanted to help her, but they held themselves in check. You know I don't. And, like, she is so fluttery about, because, like, she knows it's true. Like, she specifically, because apparently she liked being the specialist gal in the world, if only to Cade, if only in this moment. And then they say to her,
Yeah.
"I'm getting all filthy because of you." They weren't lying. Mel could see the sheen of fluid smeared over their belly.
Hot.
And then Mel says, "Not my problem. If you can't control yourself, that's on you."
And Cade
And then Cade
begs. They're like, "Let me touch you. I promise I'll make you feel good." And then she says, "I'm feeling great as is. Thanks." And then she says, "But go ahead, touch yourself, let me see." And then it says the shift in the air was immediate. Cade drove forward so they were on hands and knees, their hand wrapping around their hard cock and stroking it in a tight fist. They crawled until their mouth hovered over Mel's, both of them breathing hard into each other. "Can I taste you?" asked in a breath that was hot against Mel's skin. She pursed her lips and blew Cade a kiss. Not yet. And so then Mel is like, "I'm gonna come." And then doesn't Cade say, like, "What can I do?" Or like, "Can I make a mess of you?"
So she says they're allowed to do whatever they want once she comes. And they're like, "Can I make a mess out of you?" And she says, "Fuck yes." And then, oh my God, they are masturbating, and their foreheads are touching. And so now they're just masturbating and like moaning together. And then she comes and they're like, now? And she's like, "Yes, please." And they get over her and then come all over her torso.
Yeah.
And she's so into it. And then they like kiss really fondly. And then they lean down and lick their cum off of her. And she says, "You're going to clean me up yourself, huh? This is a full service experience." "I aim to please," Cade whispered into her skin. And then they're like cleaning all the way down until they're like at the apex of her thighs. And says, "Shall I clean up the mess you made while I'm here?"
Oh my God.
And they're just like, the explicit content in this book is so top tier. And they rubbed their cheek against her thigh right above her own wet slickness. "As long as you don't expect me to come again so soon after that, I can't really do multiples." Cade lifted their head and looked at her. Have you ever tried? They licked their lips like a wolf. Okay, St. Cloud. She guided them by the hair toward her cunt. Show me what you got.
Oh, my God.
This is really pulling something out from the annals of HB history, but
Tell me
I
everything.
vote that TJ Alexander gets a cunt award.
Ooh, yes.
Just throwing it out there.
I
know
like
that you
it.
and I don't have the issue with the term cunt, but that does not deny the fact that TJ Alexander, the
Deserves
author,
it.
deserves the cunt award.
I like it.
God,
it.
that was like, that's way back in that was like IPB episode
yeah.
with
That was-
Hassan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just I was thinking it the whole time. But anyway. So they fool around for the next couple of sex is hot, it's great, and it's also so sweet.
And intimate.
And so,
like, they're emotionally intimate the whole time.
yeah. And so Mel is like running her hands through Cade's hair. Their head is in her lap. And she's like, so what happens when we get home?
Yeah. Are we
Like,
going to continue
what is this? And Kate's like, I mean, when you say this, I assume you're not referring solely to sex. You mean like the intimacy, the closeness? And she's like, yeah, all of that. Kate smiled and says, I would like to keep that up.
Mm-hmm.
Would you? And Mel tried to imagine going back to New York, the real world, their normal lives, and never kissing Kate again. Never playing silly, sexy games with them or talking late into the night about things they couldn't tell anyone else. She didn't like how that looked.
Mm-hmm. So they're together now. But then Mel says, so what do I call you now? Are you my girlfriend? And Kate's like, oh, God, anything but that.
That is sounds so juvenile.
Ugh.
Metamor turned to more? That's quite complicated, don't you think? How about associate? That's suitably grown up, she nodded to herself. Kissing associate, senior smooching associate.
I can't believe I'm attracted to you, Kate muttered to himself. Okay, so listen, they end up back in New York. BB is over the moon about this, but then Mel does this super dumb thing that I don't want to spend a lot of time on, and that is that she insists that they have two parallel relationships. They box each other off, and it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
So,
I'm sure it works for some people.
it makes sense though, because
Okay.
specifically, Cade and BB have a 11-year plus relationship.
Yeah.
So jumping into that,
Okay, you've got a point, because she says, I specifically need to know where my place is. And I
Yes.
don't want to, encroach on your couple time or whatever. They're not super worried about it, but that's what they're doing now. Here's what I didn't like about the contract. They update the guidelines, and it says, newly updated guidelines for poly living with BB and Mel plus Cade.
I had a big fucking problem.
How
with that.
dare you?
Yeah.
Just say
And then the last
Cade.
It's the same contract, and at the end, additionally, Mel and Kate agreed to also being in a committed couple with no endearments.
Fuck this.
Last names are not endearments, and they're arguing within the notes. It was
it's very cute.
But this actually isn't the rules update that I had an issue with.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm sure.
The
I
plus
just didn't
Kate
like
was
the.
a thing, but
I didn't like that.
the plus, I didn't like that either.
No.
So they're both surprised. Kate and BB are you don't want to spend time as a trio, and Mel says no, she doesn't. And then Mel, we have that book scene where Mel is researching polyamory and all of these things, and
poor
Daniel comes in the
Daniel.
middle of it. Mel, you've been I'm glad it's acknowledged in this book
Yeah.
that Mel's been a terrible friend for months.
And it makes sense because she's trying to figure out this entirely new lifestyle. But Daniel is like, what the fuck are you doing with all these books? Why don't you just, I don't know, talk to your best friend who is also in a polyamorous relationship? What the fuck? And she's like, oh, I mean, do you really want me to bother you with this kind of stuff? And then finally she's like, Daniel, you would tell me if I did something right. And he's like, listen, you haven't done anything. It's just like, I feel like we're two ships passing in the night. I feel like we live together, we work together, but we're not really friends anymore, kinda.
Mm-hmm. You only come to me when you have a problem right now.
Yeah.
Like,
so they decide to have a standing BFF date, and it's great. She is still practicing cocktails and stuff on the side, and then she double books herself with both Cade and BB. And then she tries to be like, Cade, how about we do some afternoon sex instead of doing the botanical garden at night? Thinking that Cade won't notice. And so then Cade calls, and they're like, you double booked yourself. And she's like, what? What? No. Cade's like, I'm looking at the calendar I share with BB, and yeah, she's got you in here tonight with plans. And Mel is just like, oh no, I'm the worst, and I'm so sorry. And Cade's like, hey, listen, we're not going to do any of the plans. We're going to talk tonight. And so you can come to us or we can come to you. She decides to go to them. And then they say, good, wear something comfortable. Click. What does that mean?
Well, and specifically, like, Cade makes a very good point. Like, they're like, hey, the issue isn't that you double booked yourself.
Yeah.
It's the fact that your first idea, the first impulse, and that you followed through with that impulse was lying about it.
Right.
And, like, obfuscating the truth.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And we need to have a little chat. By the way, listener, very importantly to me, Mel decides, Daniel talks her out of it, but she's like, what if I just rebook it so we're at the same restaurant and
I'll just
hang out with
Doubtfire it.
And then, and Daniel's like, that's not gonna work. So she goes over there and she looks a bedraggled mess because it started raining and BB was really concerned and Mel's like, but like, I was here to talk about the fuck up. And BB's like, yeah, we can do that, but also we can take care of you.
Because BB yells up the stairs, Cade, get the comfy robe. And Cade comes down with this super thick robe. And then BB's like, do you need socks? Do you have socks?
Wait, hang on. Importantly, Cade looks at them stone-faced and says, do you want fuzzy socks?
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, no, I already have socks. And BB's like, that's not good enough.
I'm getting you the fuzzy socks. So they pamper her and they talk. And she's like, I thought that I would fuck up and you would both hate me and you would break up with me. And I went nuclear and like...
but to go with the Mrs. Doubtfire thing,
oh, yeah.
They're in the bed and everyone makes mistakes. BB once triple booked herself, Cade offered. BB lifted her head to say to them, oh my God, remember how for a second there it looked like I was going to try and have all three of you show up at the same restaurant but at different tables? Like, Mel's brows rose as she stared straight up. The climactic scene and Mrs. Doubtfire? Cade snorted, see, Sorrento? At least you weren't grasping at straws like this one here. Yeah,
no,
Mel muttered.
Totally.
What kind of weirdo would do that?
What? It's so good. So they finally talk it all through. And they're like, of course we wouldn't be mad at you and break up with you. And also, if we were those type of people, why would you want to be with us? And Mel's like, hardy har, good point. But then by the end of it, BB's like, I mean, we've been wondering for a while if you might think about, combining our relationships, making it a little bit more fluid. And finally, they decide that that's what they're going to do. And Mel immediately, this horny toad that I love so much, Mel's like immediately thinking about the different configurations the three of them could get up to.
What a mood, though.
Oh, hello.
This is the note that bothered me. Because it's the same fucking note where everything is all split up and all of these things.
Yeah.
And I was just like, at this point, And maybe this is just, I really hate a fucking note that's crossed out all over the goddamn
Wow.
place. Rewrite the fucking relationship contract.
Right, it should just be a new contract at this point, if that's what
Jesus
you're doing.
Christ.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and
anyway.
I understood it for, like, the bit that it was in the book, because
Yes,
it's
I did
repeated, like,
too.
5 times with different
and
amendments, and it was cute.
It's so adorable.
Totally.
It was, but like,
God damn it.
so it's Food Fest time. It's time for the competition.
Time for the competition. And guess what? We have had this ghost of an ex-wife popping up throughout this whole book. I didn't know if it was going to come back. Ew. Oh, God, excuse me.
Was that a hiccup?
Yeah.
That was the cutest hiccup I've ever heard.
That's a hiccup into a burp. Come on.
It was so cute. You're like, like a startled little fairy.
I am very dainty and demure, you know.
Very mindful.
Yeah, mindful. So I didn't know if this specter of an ex-wife was gonna, pop up like a poltergeist. And turns out, yeah, Lynn does, with the girlfriend that she's been with since 4 months after they divorced or something like that. And so, Mel has this moment where she gets to be like, oh, you're asking who these 2 people are? Oh, what? Huh, how about I introduce you to my partners?
My
And I
insanely hot partners.
I mean, yeah. And then I think the girlfriend is like, she goes like, business partners?
Yeah.
And then BB goes, no, romantic partners. And like her ex-wife is just like taken aback. And then they're like, okay, well, we have to go to this really important cocktail competition now.
But also, very importantly, the girlfriend is like, oh, sounds complicated. And Cade smirked. Not really.
Not really.
I'm so sorry.
It's great.
I just can't let you skip over Cade lines, you know?
I hear
I'm
you.
so sorry. I have to make sure.
I hear you. So the competition happens. She does an incredible job. She ends up making this Pomero margaritas, and it's basically a tour of her
Alcoholic
bartending
beverage I probably can't
career.
afford.
Or drink. Yeah, I can't do tequila. And like her presentation is amazing. She does this entire like spiel as she's mixing all the ingredients, and it's wonderful. But she loses, except that she wins in the end, because not only does she get the card of a really famous bar cocktail guy who loves investing in new ventures, but she also gets invited to a queer after party that's only for the queers. And she's like, and the guy who comes up is like, so normally I don't like to assume, but in case
I felt so seen by this because
in case you're interested.
you ever just like meet somebody and you're like, I'm not trying to like make assumptions here, but
Right.
like,
But if I'm picking up the vibes that I feel like you're giving off.
I just like you got real short hair and you wear your keys on a carabiner on a belt.
Yeah.
You know, so
You're like effortlessly hot, you know?
Yeah. You've got piercings and tattoos all over the place.
Yeah. So they end up at that after party, and then they're like together. The epilogue is Daniel moving out of Mel and his
Want
apartment.
to talk about the sex?
Oh fuck! I thought that was in the epilogue. It's not.
No,
I'm so sorry.
It's the last. I was,
No, it's very important.
Did you, Mel? You saw my face. I was like,
Yeah. No, I know. I'm so sorry. I thought that was in the epilogue. It's very silly of me.
so
Okay.
guess what, listener? It's on TM times 3.
We finally, and I think this might have been one of the things with this book, is like the pacing was a little weird for me. I liked the fact that it was the buildup of 2 relationships, but it felt weird to be like having the one and only threesome scene in the last chapter in this polyam relationship that they've been in for months. You know what I mean? Again,
Yeah.
I understood why it was constructed this way, but it was a little clunky, I think.
I felt that because literally the first half of this book is her and BB.
Yeah.
And so I struggle, like the pacing, to me, the pacing felt slightly off. That half of the book was her and BB. And then I felt like Cade got added, and then it was the end of the book. And I was like,
exactly.
I didn't see the relationship build up. Like, I understand
Right.
that it was like them snowed in, and so it was all of it all at once happening. And like, I understand how the pacing in some ways worked.
Yeah, but it was a little clunky for me. Anyway, we're finally getting to a very hot threesome scene.
It's
Okay?
great.
So Cade is being like the scene director kind of situation, because don't they say something to BB like, shouldn't we show Mel how I like to take care of you or something like that? And then has BB sit on Mel's face.
Well, so like, Mel demands that BB get the fuck over there.
Yes.
And Cade says, "Love, would you please get over here so that Mel and I can play with our favorite toy?"
Yes.
Listen, y'all, I've never wanted to be the meat in a scene. I want to be BB. I've never wanted to, like, I want to be BB in this scene so fucking bad.
I would be BB in a heartbeat.
So she comes over. BB is doing her little bratty thing, and Cade shushes her and then says, "Mel and I are talking. I'm not trying to flex, if I understand that slang correctly.
Oh, God.
But do you agree that I know BB better than anyone else does? Please don't ever use slang. It sounds wrong. But also, yes," Mel said, "you know her best. I'd like to tell you what to do to her. I'd like to show you how I have her.
Yeah.
Would you like that too?"
The answer is yes.
Yes, Cade. Wholeheartedly
I.
yes.
As
So,
the reader.
BB is sitting on Mel's face, and Cade is laid out next to her,
Yeah.
dirty talking in her ear and saying things like, "Slow, that's it. Slow at first. Can you see how pink she is? She's so close already. We don't want her to finish yet." And BB pipes in, We don't?
No? Are you sure?
And they say, "Her eyes are bigger than her stomach, you know. She wants to come 2, 3, 4 times before we're through with her, but she turns to jelly as soon as you give her one." And I was like, well, that's fucking rude to point out, Cade. And just alrighty then.
Then Cade gets up and they do a clicky clack over in the corner, and then they put a harness on Mel.
The harness,
Hot.
the strap that Mel fucks BB with.
Yeah. And so then Cade's like, "Get on Mel's cock right now.
Yeah.
It's hot."
Oh, Cade says, "Do you know what she loves me to do when I'm fucking her like this?" And Mel's like, "I have a feeling you're going to tell me." And then like starts like playing with BB's ass, which was really great. And like then they tell BB to get on her hands and knees. And Mel is fucking her from behind. And as BB is like losing her mind, Cade says, "Fuck her harder." She likes that, being filled up. And then Cade comes around to BB's front and says, "Want something in your mouth, love?" And BB's super into it. And then, oh my God, they are in BB's mouth.
Yeah.
She is in BB's vagina.
Yeah.
And then they lock eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And Cade blows her a kiss.
Yeah.
And I swooned. And then Mel comes.
Cade says, like, "Yes, just like that. She loves it when you come in her."
Uh-huh. And then everyone comes. And they're all
Everybody
snuggled up.
comes.
Wait, this is so funny. BB was rude to me in this scene, okay?
Oh.
Because
all right.
I felt very called out. I'm in this picture and I don't like it. Because BB's like the first to clear her throat. "Again?" She asks sweetly. "Love, Your eyes are already closing, Cade said. You're asleep on your feet. Well, your hands and knees. And then Phoebe rubbed her face cat-like against one of the silk pillows. Maybe a quick nap. and then slumber party. Phoebe mumbled into her pillow. I'm so happy.
Aww.
You're dead to the world, Cade said gently. And then they all curl up in a little puddle. And it's so cute.
It's so cute.
And they're together
it's so
forever.
Hot.
Happily ever
Yeah,
after.
they're together forever. There might be additions and deletions, but they're together forever. That's what's happening.
Yeah, because they're still open at the end. They're still, oh, God.
And, like, by the end, she's opening up her own bar. She's redecorating the apartment because Daniel's moving out and she's staying in the apartment. BB and Cade are still living together. They're still all together. They're supporting
Cade says,
her.
I love you now.
Yes. They're supporting her at, like, the first day at her bar. Like, it's a huge deal. The end, it's the best.
So good. All right, Mel.
Yeah.
What's your lady love? The listener, the dead, like I was like, is Mel frozen? Immediately, it was frozen, looking off into the middle distance, like I fucked up.
My lady love is getting movies from the library. So Michael a lot of times takes the kids to the library and he'll like check out the movie section or whatever. And this week he came home with the stage production of Waitress the Musical, starring Sara Bareilles, who wrote the entire score and helped produce the musical and everything. And so we sat during family movie time and we watched one of my favorite musicals on a DVD. And the kids were there with us. And like, this is one of those musicals that just like hits me where I live. And so between the imperfect heroine and like the very complicated situation that's like the core of that story, and the theme of like, you know, being saved by motherhood and like figuring out how to advocate for yourself and how to really grow up because you have to take care of like this tiny being, right? And like the themes of like, you can do bad things but not be a bad person, and then combine that with Sara Bareilles' music and harmonies, and I am just fucking sobbing on the couch the whole time. Like at the end of the movie, Ember got up and he was like, "Oh, Mom, my hair is wet. What's going on?" And it's because we were clutching each other and I was just dripping tears on the top of his head. And at one point,
he's
Valor
going to
looked
remember
over.
that for the rest of his life.
I know. Valor looked
so
over
cute.
and she was like, "Mom, are those happy tears or sad tears?" And I said, "You know what? They're complicated tears, but it's beautiful. Like they're beautiful tears. Life is hard." Like it was just it was such a fun time. But like I always forget that libraries have things like movies you can check out. That's my lady love.
I love that.
Also, Waitress the Musical. Check it out. Put the score on. It's incredible.
It's a great musical.
And the lyrics are so clever. It's hilarious. It's great.
Co-signed. Not the crying on my son's head thing, but that being a great musical.
Just the whole. At one point, Michael was like, "She hasn't even found out she's pregnant yet, Melody." And I'm like,
Don't worry. Michael's here to remind you of the of the facts.
Yeah. Jeez. What's your lady love, Sabrina?
My lady love in general, because I'm cheating, is interactions with listeners. Because HB Devon came in.
Yes.
I think I'm using this slang right. I'm feeling very Kate right now. Came in clutch.
Oh,
With
interesting.
genetic statistics in the cult.
Ooh, yes.
And it was fan flibber blastering-tastic.
And that's from our Hunger Like No Other episode.
Mhm. It was beautiful because I put the call out. I said,
That's right.
I can do the math, but I don't understand genetics. So
Yeah.
somebody needs to come in and tell me how likely it is that she was correct when she assumed that Dude Bro was her father because he was blonde and left-handed. And the answer is not likely. Not likely. So I feel validated. And the reason that I'm cheating is because then, like, a couple of days after that came out, I ended up, like, having the most fantastic. So I put the call out in the Discord specifically to HB Emily, where I was like, hey, you've recently read this book, and I don't remember enough specifics about it, but I'm doing that really unhinged audit of my reading, and I want some notes on that book. Would you be up for doing, like, a call with me, and we'll just ramble about these books for a hot second so I can take notes on the book for my...
Your new obsession?
The only
For your
important thing,
masterpiece?
the only thing I can will to my non-existent children that's of any value.
Quite.
Yeah, not the house.
Your masterpiece, Sabrina.
Not the, it's, yeah, it's something, all right. But we ended up just chilling out for like 3 hours talking about romance. I understand the aristocracy now and how gentry versus aristocracy versus like
Wait, that's
Duke,
different?
then Viscount, then
Oh,
Marcus, then Baron. I learned what a baronet is. I learned who gets called a lord and who gets called a lady, and how not all ladies and lords are aristocracy, but they are gentry. And
sometimes they're countesses? Who knows? Frankly.
Guess what, Mel?
What? You do
Now
now.
I know. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to go look at my notes.
Sure.
but,
You
it's
got
in
it,
there.
though.
It's in there. My Maiden Lane notes are something right now. And yeah, it was just fast. So like just in general HB interaction. I did also did officially tell the both of them that HB Devon is now officially our genetics expert.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for your service, Devon.
Yeah. And HB Emily is, whether or not for the pod as a whole, but for me specifically, my England Times expert. And
No, yeah, she's your historian.
I was able to accurately tag the Maiden Lane books as Regency Georgian, maybe?
Is it Georgians? Maybe.
Mm-hmm, I think
You
so.
have to check your notes, frankly.
But on top of that, guess what? I learned new terms for other things, like the Spy Master series, which one of those books is not only
You got this.
Excuse me while I very subtly stall. The Spy Master series is time period historical Napoleonic Wars and or French Revolution, and the Black Hawk is Napoleonic Wars, post-Napoleonic Wars, and French Revolution, which makes me look like a real smarty pants. Don't ask any more information than that, because I don't have an answer for you. You're going to need to go talk to HB Emily.
That's right.
That's my lady love. So,
yeah.
love yourself.
Awesome.
As much as I love Cade, probably.
Oh my God. Keep being a badass and love yourself as much as Sabrina loves Cade. Or maybe don't, because you'll never stop looking in the pond. You know what I mean? You'll just tip right into that pond and drown, Narcissus.
Ooh, another Hunger Like No Other reference could be made there. Looking in the mirror, like, what's her butt? Can't think of her name. Mariquetta.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Looking in the mirror like Mariquetta?
Oh my God, that
That's
was a
not
Hunger
a
Like
Hunger
No
Like
Other.
No
That's
Other.
Wicked Deeds.
Dingus! We did a quickie about that though, so there you go.
Love yourself as much as you love being factually incorrect and
That's right.
really just
reveling in it.
motoring on. Who gives a fuck? Love y'all. Bye.
Bye. All right, we'll be back next week with How the Marquess Was Won by Julie Ann Long. Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by me, Melody Carlisle. Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by the wonderful author Kate Pryor, who has a new release out, Made It to My Ex. Go check it. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, and then maybe rate us 5 stars and leave a review. That small action is a huge help in growing our show. If you want to get in touch for advertising inquiries or anything else, you can email us at heavingbosoms@gmail.com. And if you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomspodcast. You can also find us on all the socials, practically. Instagram @heavingbosoms, Threads too, TikTok @heaving_bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult. We will be back next week with How the Marquess Was Won.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.